George H.W. Bush was born in Milton, Massachusetts on June 12, 1924. After serving the Navy during World War II, he became chairman of Harris County Republican Party in 1963, married Barbara Pierce while on leave from the Navy, and, a year later, ran for Senate in Texas. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful, but in 1966, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives and served 2 terms there. Still, he failed to win his party's nomination for presidency in 1980 against Ronald Reagan, and so was later chosen on as Reagan's vice president running mate. Bush finally reached presidency in 1989 after winning the 1988 election against Democratic nominee Michael Dukakis, becoming the first sitting vice president to be elected president since 1837. Throughout his campaign and during the 1988 Republican National Convention, Bush famously stated, "Read my lips, no new taxes." Bush campaigned that he wanted to create a kinder, gentler America. In his inaugural address, he stated that he wanted to increase the principle of volunteerism, help reduce homelessness and crime, as well as confront drug addiction to implement a new start of unity, diversity, and generosity. However, when he became president, he had $2.8 trillion in debt, making it hard to create new programs. Thus, he had to create a limited agenda, where he focused solely on anti-drug propaganda and enforcement, education reform, and volunteerism.
Additionally, due to the limited agenda, he had to raise taxes, or as he called it, a revenue increase, almost immediately after taking office, going against his campaign promise. He also balanced the budget by cutting government spending. Bush signed off on acts that the American public supported as well. In July of 1990, Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act. This ensured that Americans with disabilities would not be discriminated against in public businesses and accommodations, in job employment, and in transportation. Though this act was widely supported, some critics claimed the act gave the government too much power in public businesses and it was too expensive. Bush was able to dispute these critics' claims by proving that if people with disabilities were now able to get jobs, they would no longer rely on government money. Similarly, Bush was able to put down cost concerns about the other major domestic policy he created later that same year. The Clean Air Act Amendment of 1990 strongly gained support after an oil tanker spilled 10 million gallons of oil into the Prince William Sound in Alaska. The main focuses of the amendments were on curbing acid rain, reducing smog in urban areas, and in ending emission of toxic chemicals from industries. He even appointed the first environmental professional, William Riley, as the leader of the Environmental Protection Agency. Though these acts were both major accomplishments, they were all Bush was able to do in domestic affairs during his presidency.
Bush's presidency was very active in the foreign policy realm. From the start, Bush sought to improve U.S. relations around the world, but took a pragmatic and conservative approach. After the Tiananmen Square protests were violently suppressed, Bush condemned China's actions but refused to do anything else which might compromise U.S.-China relations. A few months later, Bush authorized Operation Just Cause, sending over 23,000 U.S. troops into Panama to overthrow dictator Noriega. Although condemned internationally, this action bolstered Bush's popularity in the U.S. and in Panama. Relations changed in Europe as well, as the fall of the Berlin Wall marked the end of the Cold War, and his refusal to declare victory improved relations with the Soviet Union. He would later go on to sign START, the largest arms reduction treaty since Reagan. And after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait in 1990, Bush came out with the Soviet Union to condemn Iraq's action. This would mark the start of the Gulf War, where the U.S. coalition freed Kuwait, as well as marking America's largest military operation since Vietnam. And although successful with few casualties, he would be criticized for not invading Iraq. This success helped support his vision of a new world order, where peaceful countries would unite against rogue states, bringing about a more peaceful, orderly world.
The New World Order ideally would be free of terror and have a stronger sense of justice, security, and peace for the world, but it faced many challenges. Bush sent troops into Somalia in 1992 to help aid in the humanitarian crisis after societal failure. Although it was initially successful, troops were withdrawn after the former president's term. The New World Order also faced criticism when, instead of using military action, the Bush administration tried to talk leaders out of using violence in the breaking up of Yugoslavia. Although some said using violence would have resulted in another Vietnam, others felt it was America's job as a world leader to step in. The war in Yugoslavia would continue for years. Republican President George H.W. Bush came into office with a large spending deficit, little revenue to fund programs with, and a mostly Democratic Congress. He is well known for his success in foreign affairs and his will for stability and peace in a time of geopolitical chaos. His successes, however, are overshadowed by his lack of drive in domestic issues, as he broke his promise to not raise taxes and to cut military spending. The former President Bush continues to be remembered for his strong attempts to avoid violence and his conservative nature, which was his key to success in handling foreign issues.